Today's episode is brought to you by Mint Mobile. Switching to Mint Mobile is the easiest way to save in 2024. Wireless plans are $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. To get this new customer offer, go to mintmobile.com/Murrell. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Streaming Charts with Dan, which is taking the place of the news show this week for a couple reasons. Number one, a lot of the actual news that came out was specifically in the realm of streaming charts, and I wanted to do a streaming show this week. And also, I'm currently covering the Sundance Film Festival virtually, which means I'm watching a lot of movies, so I decided to combine a couple of shows. But there is a lot to talk about. Of course, we have the streaming charts themselves, which takes us through the end of the year on the Nielsen charts. So we'll get a full picture of the 2023 viewership on Nielsen with a couple of minor exceptions that I'll note. But before we get to that, I want to get to a couple of big stories and also your questions from the Mint Mobile hotline. But the big streaming story this week, or one of the big ones, was a shakeup over at Netflix as Scott Stuber, who's been the head of the Netflix film division for a very long time, since 2017, announced that he will be leaving the company to start his own production company. Stuber was head of the Netflix film division while it was expanding with movies like Roma and The Irishman and Glass Onion, The Power of the Dog, when it was going into the big Oscar hopefuls and really building that entire division from what it was. Media reports have claimed that Stuber had a very long-standing conflict with Ted Sarandos, of course, the head of Netflix, over their strategy for theatrical exhibition on their movies. That's been one of the criticisms of Netflix movies for a long time, which is that they come out, they're on the streaming service, people may not notice them, or they talk about them for a week or two, and then they're just gone. Now, Netflix did try a limited theatrical release strategy with Glass Onion. It played in about 600 theaters nationwide, and it actually did pretty well, but they never expanded it to more theaters, and they never tried a release strategy at that scale again. They've still mostly been very small, limited theatrical releases, mainly for their awards contenders, and then big debuts on the streaming platform. Reportedly, Scott Stuber wanted to put Glass Onion in more theaters. He'd hoped that the success of Glass Onion in that small theatrical run, the one that it did get, would have encouraged Ted Sarandos to put more movies in more theaters, but that just is not apparently where Ted Sarandos wants to go. He has no interest in putting Netflix films in theaters nationwide, and so this was, again, according to media reports, sort of a dividing line between these two. And honestly, I'm with Scott Stuber on this one. I don't understand why Netflix isn't putting their movies in theaters, because to me, it's just leaving money on the table. I don't buy the argument that if you put a movie in theaters, that it decreases its demand on the streaming service itself. Some of the most popular movies, as we'll see this year on Netflix, were movies that not only weren't Netflix originals, but they got full and successful theatrical releases. Stuber also publicly said that he believes that the company should be focusing on quality over quantity in their films. And when speculating on the future of the Netflix film division, some have said that Netflix won't change that they will continue to focus on quantity, that they'll be perhaps even less focused on prestige films, because they'll essentially cede the market for directors like Martin Scorsese, who want their films in theaters, to streamers like Apple, who will happily give their directors a theatrical run. Another route that many have proposed is that Netflix will take a heavy pivot away from original films altogether. Not that they'll stop making them, but that they won't be a key strategy point for the company itself. And this is largely because there are so many other competitors that are now licensing their films to Netflix again. They basically come full circle, where Netflix is getting big shows from Max and big studio movies, maybe after an exclusive run on those other streaming services, but they're more popular on Netflix. So in many ways, the licensing business is picking back up, and Netflix doesn't have to dump so much money into originals because there are things that are delivered to their doorstep that people want to watch. Of course, Ted Sarandos has said that nothing will change in the division with Scott Stuber gone, but listen, if you know how corporations work, that's what happens every single time there's a major change or a major shakeup or somebody buys something. The first word is always, well, nothing's going to change. Nobody's going to lose their job, or no positions are going to change or whatever, because that's what you have to say. And then over time, things eventually do change. But it is a new day at Netflix Films, and it will be without the man who was in charge of that division across its Oscar ambitions and its biggest growth. There was also news this week from the director of an original film from a competing streaming service, Amazon Prime Video. The first trailer for the remake of Roadhouse, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, debuted this week, and it was also announced that Roadhouse will have a splashy premiere at the South by Southwest Film Festival, but that it will be streaming streaming exclusively on Amazon Prime. And because of that, the film's director, Doug Liman, who's done movies like The Bourne Identity and Mr. and Mrs. Smith and many others, has announced that he will be boycotting that South by Southwest premiere. He wrote a very long and very scathing letter explaining why he was doing it. This is part of what he said, quote, "The facts. I signed up to make a theatrical motion picture for MGM. Amazon bought MGM. Amazon said make a great film and we will see what happens. I made a great film. What else could I have delivered to the studio? Nothing, it turns out, because contrary to their public statements, Amazon has no interest in supporting cinemas. Amazon will exclusively stream Roadhouse on Amazon's Prime. Amazon asked me and the film community to trust them and their public statements about supporting cinemas, and then they turned around and are using Roadhouse to sell plumbing fixtures. We tried everything to convince them to put Roadhouse in theaters. I even asked them to allow me to sell Roadhouse to another studio that would put it in theaters. They said no. The reality is there may not be a human villain in this story. It may simply be an Amazon computer algorithm. Amazon will sell more toasters if it has more subscribers. It will have more subscribers if it doesn't have to compete with movie theaters. But a computer doesn't know what it is like to share the experience of laughing and cheering and crying with a packed audience in a dark theater. And if Amazon has its way, future audiences won't know either." Now, Doug Liman said a lot of other things in this open letter. I advise you to read it. He said that it was the best movie he'd ever made. He said that it was the best performance of Jake Gyllenhaal's career, a career-defining performance. I mean, if the movie's that good, forget a theater. I want to watch it now. However, I'll watch it on my phone. I don't really care. But the point is, we have yet another director here having a falling out with the studio over streaming strategy. We saw it with Christopher Nolan and Warner Brothers. There's some reports perhaps that they may have mended those fences, but he certainly went over to Universal to make Oppenheimer, and I'm sure Warner Brothers wishes they had that film, although it probably also would have precluded the Barbenheimer phenomenon that we got this summer. Now we have Doug Liman with an open falling out with Amazon and Amazon Prime Video, and this is what we're seeing, and it ties back into Scott Stuber leaving Netflix. We are seeing the pendulum swing back on the part of a lot of directors from making a movie for whoever will have them, if they'll give them the money to finance it, to being a little more choosy and saying, well, no, wait a minute. We want that theatrical release. We think it's an important part in the life cycle of our movie. The big question now is it too late? Will there be streamers that will do it except for Apple? Apple's really the biggest streamer that has said, yes, we will continue to give you both a theatrical release and a big streaming release. There are so many things that have been shaken up by these streaming wars and what's been going on. The theatrical exhibition business is one of them. And now we have directors openly feuding with different studios and different streamers over the lack of a theatrical release. While the streaming wars may have cooled down in some aspects that we'll talk about in a few minutes, I think they're heating up in this sort of second wave as the directors push back now that the studios are getting a little more desperate and the directors themselves have just a little bit more power. And I actually have a lot more to say about the balance of power in the streaming wars and what the future may hold if it's not streaming movies. And that actually ties into our questions from the Mint Mobile hotline. I selected some questions, some great questions that were specifically focused on streaming and streaming related issues. And our first question comes from a mystery caller who did not provide a name or location.
Hey, Dan. I'm a long-time listener of your show. I really enjoyed your content. I did have a question. I'm sure that you saw the news that WWE and Netflix just made a deal. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Thanks. Keep up the great work.
Well, mystery caller, that was a huge news story that also broke this week, in case you missed it. Netflix reached a deal with the WWE to be the exclusive home of what's currently known as Monday Night Raw. It may just be Raw once it switches to Netflix. Starting in 2025, Raw is currently the most watched show on the USA cable network. Over 1 million viewers a week on cable, and that is a big number. I mean, it's getting to be where that's a big number for broadcast, not to mention cable. The big news isn't just domestic, though, for Netflix and the WWE. Yes, Raw will be exclusively on Netflix here in the United States. But worldwide, the WWE will be expanding its presence and its brand. It will also be the home of other wrestling programming, including SmackDown, of course, WrestleMania, the biggest wrestling event of the year, which is a massive opportunity for the WWE to expand their brand globally. Many people saying the WWE probably actually took a little bit less money from Netflix than they could have taken from other people to get those rights, because it is this opportunity to grow their brand around the world. And at the same time, this may have helped deal a fatal blow to one of Netflix's competitors in the streaming war, which is Peacock. Peacock currently has the rights to WWE, and they run through 2026. Now, with Raw moving to Netflix in 2025, that's part of those rights gone. And if the WWE should make an overall deal with another streamer or another partner, if all of those premium live events and weekly events are gone from Peacock, that could be all she wrote for that streamer. Yes, it's growing at a rate that they say is the biggest in the industry, but it also lost in Q4 last year, just the last quarter of the year, $825 million. So even if it becomes profitable slowly, they still have to claw their way out of the hole. And can they do that without the WWE? Or in order to keep the WWE, will they have to pay out an exorbitant amount of money to keep them around? Keeping in mind that they just paid out an exorbitant amount of money for the exclusive rights to one NFL playoff game. What this reads like to me really is Netflix throwing their weight around a little bit, because it's obvious that we are in the next phase. Is it the final phase? We don't know, of the streaming wars, and Netflix is still on top. They have proven that the restrictions on password sharing haven't cost them users. In fact, they've expanded their user base. They added 13 million users in the fourth quarter of last year. They've shown that their users won't reject the advertising tier, that they will sign up and use that tier, which is another revenue stream, and they continue to be the dominant force when it comes to viewership. Yes, Disney Plus has some shows and some movies that pop here and there, as do all of the other streaming services, but Netflix has the most consistent viewership, and as I said, is even picking up a lot of viewership from things like the Super Mario Brothers movie, which was on Peacock for a while after it was released theatrically. It got some good viewership numbers on Peacock, but it has been absolutely dominant on Netflix. It has been a huge draw for viewers to come to Netflix and watch that movie on Netflix. So I think they smell a little bit of blood in the water. I think they understand that they're still the king, and they may want to do some things to seal the deal, to shore up things like WWE and live entertainment, to help to grab that market share there, to grab those licensing deals and get stuff back on there so people resubscribe to Netflix to see shows that they missed on Max, or see movies that they didn't see on Peacock or Max or any of these other streaming platforms because they don't have them. I think that they may want to look at dealing a death blow here, or a potential death blow, or at least a fatal blow to anyone being a true competitor to them. So I think it will be very interesting to see what Netflix does. I think the signing of WWE is a big move for them. We'll see what their movie strategy ends up being now that Scott Stuber is gone. And yeah, I mean, like I said, we may be in a new phase of the streaming wars, but I don't think that things have gotten any less interesting. And let's see where we go next. Our next question is from Mark in Iowa City about certain streaming shows that seem to hit the charts from out of nowhere, and whether those meteoric rises are as organic as they may seem.
Hey, this is Mark from Iowa City. Been listening to you for a while now, Dan, since the old Screen Junkie days. I have a theory that I want your opinion on. You've talked in streaming charts about the sudden rising popularity of Suits and Young Sheldon, and you kind of talked about how these seemingly came out of nowhere. But to me, when I hear Suits and Young Sheldon, I think of a trend on TikTok that's become popular, where clips from both of those shows and other shows have been put over clips of mobile games. And Suits and Young Sheldon in particular have been very popular over, I'd say, the past year at least, before they were on these streaming services. My theory is there someone at Netflix or at these streaming services that knew they were going to be acquiring these shows and decided to put these little clips out on TikTok to sort of gain traction before they're out on the streaming service? That's my theory and my question. Thanks.
Thanks for that question, Mark. And I think that's a really interesting theory. If you watch the show, you'll know that if I see something pop up all of a sudden that I can't explain, a movie or a TV show, because I'm not on TikTok and I don't know a whole lot about TikTok, will always say, well, I don't know why this movie's here, so I'm just going to say TikTok. Because the one thing that I do know is that this does happen. These random things will pop up. We've just seen it with Saltburn, which just had a huge surge in popularity. Anyone But You, I've heard basically owes its theatrical performance to clips on TikTok. And it's a great question. It's kind of a chicken and the egg question. And I like this question because are people tuning into these movies and shows because they're on TikTok, or are they on TikTok because companies are trying to get you to tune into them? And I don't know the answer to it. I think you have to go and look at these accounts. Who is posting these clips from Young Sheldon? And, listen, the whole thing about, and I've seen these on TikTok, the idea of watching a movie clip above a clip of a game, I am old. And when it comes to TikTok time, I am absolutely ancient. I am dust when it comes to the average TikTok user. So I don't get it, but it's apparently a very popular way to share clips and to watch stuff there. I guess the overstimulation is a good thing. Like I said, I'm ancient. Nobody cares about me on TikTok. But if you don't think that there are studios that are out there trying to organically plant their shows to go viral, then you don't know how marketing works, because I can guarantee you there are entire divisions of studios and streamers and everything else that have people that are specifically out there on social media beyond just the branded content. And I'm not necessarily saying this is all legal from a trade point of view, but they are out there seeding the social media atmosphere to try to get buzz going about these movies and shows. I do think that some things like Young Sheldon and Suits maybe started out a little bit more organically because the explosion has just been so huge that it makes it hard for me to believe that it's completely, manufactured. But I think that we're going to see more of what you're saying, Mark. If it hasn't happened with Young Sheldon and Suits, then I think that the studios are going to try to make it happen with other shows. And I'm sure that part of what's going on, especially if some people started on their own, is that studios are encouraging it and jumping in on the trend because the rewards have been great. I mean, Suits and Young Sheldon have had these second lives now, far beyond. Young Sheldon, of course, is still on the air. Many years after Suits left the air, people are going to want to get in on that action, because if you have an asset like that, a show like that with buzz, then you can license that show, even if it's a few years down the line, based off of that popularity. It's potentially very lucrative. Our last question comes from Brian about a favorite TV show that he is not able to see online.
Hi, Dan. My name's Brian. I just saw a video thread that reminded me that I love the 90s TV series Mad About You with Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt. I've looked and it's not streaming anywhere currently except on Amazon for purchase. I'd prefer to have the physical media, and I'm trying to find out if it even exists on Blu-ray. And I'm wondering, do you know a good way to check if it even exists on Blu-ray? Because I found a few sites when I was Googling that looked like they were selling a Blu-ray of it, but I have my doubts that it was transferred to Blu-ray, but I don't know for sure. So any response, I'd appreciate. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks for that question, Brian. Now, I am old enough, as I said, I'm TikTok dust age, which means I'm old enough to remember and have watched Mad About You when it was on the air. If you don't remember, it was part of the legendary golden age of NBC sitcom television. Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt, they starred as a married couple in New York. It was a very sitcom-y sitcom, but it's one of those also that is a little bit harder to find. It is partially available in some places for streaming. You can get a season here or a season there, or you can buy certain seasons on different platforms, as Brian referenced. There have been official DVDs of the seasons of Mad About You that you can also buy out there. But from what I can see, Brian, to answer your question, I do not see an official Blu-ray release of Mad About You. So if you have found them, and I found a couple out there, people that are selling Blu-rays of Mad About You, those are not official releases. And honestly, I wouldn't invest in them because they're not going to be remastered if they're not official. And when I say remastered, DVD is a standard resolution format, and it was made at a time before HD TVs when all TV shows were broadcast in standard definition. Now, they weren't all filmed in standard definition. For example, Star Trek: The Next Generation, one of my favorite TV shows of all time. The reason that they could put that show out on Blu-ray with a high definition remaster is because they still had the original film that the show was shot on, so they could go back to the source, they could rescan it at high definition, and they could present the picture at a definition much better than it was ever broadcast in. Now, when you go to other shows, some of them, and this is not necessarily in the 90s, but it could go as far back as the 90s, some of them, they don't even have high definition sources available. All they have are the master recordings, which are made at standard definition. Some of them don't have the original film to go back to, so you can't go back to the source and rescan that original. And I think perhaps one of the reasons that Mad About You is not out on Blu-ray is that they may not be able to remaster that show at high definition. And if you can't remaster the show, there's really no point in putting it on an HD disc. You could always sort of up-res it and try to make the standard definition look like HD, but it never actually will be. Some shows like Friends and Seinfeld, you can go back to those master recordings and you can remaster them and get it to look like HD, but not all of them. It could also be that Mad About You has some music rights issues. There are shows like Murphy Brown and Homicide, Life on the Street, and Chicago Hope that were huge hits in the 90s, that were multi-Emmy winning dramas and comedies that were a big part of television history that you can't find on streaming because they can't clear the music. And some shows are just getting over that hump. But Moonlighting was just streaming for the first time late last year for that exact reason. But that's why I'm such a proponent of physical media, because you never really know where those streaming rights are going to pop up. And if you have that hard copy of a show, then it doesn't matter what streamer it's on or where you can and can't find it. It's great to have it in your hands. So Brian, the good news is that you can find standard definition DVD quality episodes of Mad About You for purchase pretty easy and fairly cheaply. It's not like they're out of print and super expensive. The bad news is that there is no, as far as I can find, Blu-ray release of the show or Blu-ray release of the show that's planned, although you never know. NBC or the production company behind the show could go back and say, hey, we've got the masters. We can go back, we can put the show out, rescan everything, but that is a very time-intensive and a very costly procedure, and they have to know that there's going to be a market out there to justify that cost. For your sake, Brian, I'm going to be crossing my fingers to hope that maybe an official Blu-ray set of Mad About You might come out one day. And to answer the final part of your question, you can always search any online retailer like Amazon or Walmart to see if there are available editions. Those usually have reputable sources. Or specifically for high-def formats, you can use a site like Blu-ray.com. That's blue-ray.com. I've been going there for well over 10 years to find out what's going on in the world of high-definition discs. Thanks so much for your questions, and if you want to check out the Mint Mobile Hotline, we feature it on Charts with Dan. We'll feature it on this show, also the weekly news show. You can give it a call at +1 323 863 3311. And I want to thank the people behind the Mint Mobile Hotline, the ones that make it possible, Mint Mobile. You know what never sucks? Saving money. I've never saved money and thought, man, I wish I'd been dumber with my cash. Luckily, Mint Mobile's here to help saving money not suck. With a new limited time offer, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are now $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. Did you ever find $5 in your coat pocket? You know that great feeling, right? Well, imagine that Mint Mobile is stuffing your coat pockets with all the money you'd save by switching from your current wireless provider. That's a lot of extra cash to do whatever you want with, like buy a new coat that strangers haven't reached into. At Mint, all plans come with unlimited talk and text, plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network, and you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. So ditch that overpriced contract today and switch to Mint. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/Murrell. That's mintmobile.com/Murrell. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Murrell. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. All right, so we've got the streaming news out of the way. Let's get to the titular streaming charts themselves, and we'll start with the top 10 right now on iTunes for January 26th, the day that I'm recording this show. At number 1 is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Despite the fact that it's still in theaters, it's also available for purchase and premium video on demand, those high-price rentals, and it's number 1 on the iTunes store right now. In second place, in a week where it got the most Academy Award nominations, is Oppenheimer, available for purchase and rental. Then we have Migration, also still in theaters, available for purchase and premium video on demand. Wish is available for purchase only, as Disney doesn't want to put any of its things out for rental before it hits Disney+. Then we have Napoleon, available for purchase and premium video on demand. It still has a streaming run ahead of it on Apple TV+. Anatomy of a Fall is in 6th place, available for purchase and rental, as well as The Holdovers, also available for purchase and rental. Ferrari is available for purchase and on premium video on demand. Then we have Trolls Band Together, available for purchase, and The Marvels, available for purchase. Looking at the top 10 on Amazon Prime Video, at number 1 is Reacher. Its second season continues to dominate the Amazon Prime Video charts. In second place is Has Been Hotel, an A24 co-produced animated series about Hell's Princess opening up her own hotel. In third place is the Kevin James comedy special Kevin James Irregardless, followed by the series Expats from the Farewell director Lulu Wang, co-starring Nicole Kidman. Fast X is in 5th place, followed by Saltburn in 6th. A new version of Zorro, a new series based on Zorro, at number 7. At number 8 is Roleplay, an action comedy co-starring Kaylee Cuoco and David Oyelowo. Then we have the Netflix original series Gen V in 9th place, and The Other Zoe in 10th place. Let's look now at the last few weeks as far as the top programs over on Netflix. This is by total views, not time watched, and I'm glad that they've moved to this metric. And we start on January 1st, 2024, a nice clean way to start the year. At number 1 is Fool Me Once, a miniseries out of Britain with a great 37.13 million views. That is a dominant first week. Followed by Society of the Snow, now nominated for the Best International Feature Academy Award from director J.A. Bayona, with 22.93 million views. Then we have Money Heist Berlin in 3rd place, The Equalizer 3, licensed from Sony, in 4th place. Rebel Moon Part 1 drops down to 5th place. Dave Chappelle, The Dreamer, has 10.2 million views in its first week debut on the charts, followed by the Netflix miniseries You Are What You Eat, Leave the World Behind dropping down to 8th place, Exodus, Gods and Kings in 9th place, and Aquaman in 10th place. Looking now at January 8th through the 14th, Lift from director F. Gary Gray starring Kevin Hart takes over the number 1 spot at 32.8 million views, another strong week, followed by Society of the Snow in 2nd place, Fool Me Once in 3rd place, Money Heist Berlin in 4th place, and the debut of The Brother's Son starring Michelle Yeoh, a Netflix original series, in 5th place. Transporter 2 takes the number 6 spot, followed by The Equalizer 3, then the Ryan Reynolds, Sandra Bullock film The Proposal in 8th place. Detective Forced Season 1, it's a series from Poland, and yes, it is Forced, not Frost. That debuts at number 9, and then the Tyler Perry film The Single Moms Club debuts at number 10. And finally, looking at the most recent Netflix chart, this is for January 15th through the 21st. Lift stays at number 1 with another 36.68 million views, followed by the original true crime series American Nightmare at 21.38 million views. Society of the Snow is in 3rd place. Fool Me Once is in 4th place. The Netflix original film 60 Minutes, about an MMA fighter trying to get to his daughter's birthday party, debuts in 5th place. Then we have The Legend of Tarzan in 6th place. The Kitchen in 7th place, which is not the 2019 film, but a new one co-written and co-directed by Daniel Kaluuya, set in a dystopian future. In 8th place is the Matt Damon film Stillwater, followed by Money Heist Berlin and Detective Forced Season 1. And because we have those charts, we now have the most watched 2024 Netflix programs since January 1st. And Fool Me Once leads up the chart for the year so far with 72.19 million views, followed by Lift with 69.49 million, then Society of the Snow at 64.45. Then we have a fairly hefty drop off to Money Heist Berlin in 4th place at 35.99 million views. The Equalizer 3 currently in 5th place at just over 25 million views. American Nightmare Season 1 is in 6th place at 21.38 million views. Then we have Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon Part 1, which has brought in 15 million views since January 1st. The Super Mario Brothers movie is at number 8 with 14.48 million views since the beginning of the year, followed by The Brother's Son and Dave Chappelle, The Dreamer, rounding out the top 10. And as mentioned, with the Super Mario Brothers being in the top 10 and also being a big draw last year, despite the fact that it did okay for a week or two on Peacock, it has been a sustained view getter on Netflix, and that's something we'll see reflected in these charts as well. These are the Nielsen movie charts. Now, as always, these are for the US only, and they are delayed by a few weeks, so we're actually just wrapping out 2023 right now. These are the last 3 weeks of the year, which allow us to look at the most watched series and movies of 2023 now that we have all the data, or most of the data. And let's look first at the most watched streaming movies for December 11th through 17th, 2023. Leave the World Behind stayed at number 1 with 32.5 million hours watched, with the Super Mario Brothers movie in 2nd place. Barbie on Max debuts in 3rd place at 8.6 million hours watched, followed by Candy Cane Lane on Amazon and Home Alone on Disney+. Keep in mind, this is in the heart of the holiday season. Elf on Hulu and Max is at number 6, followed by The Grinch at number 7. Gran Turismo debuts at number 8 on Netflix, another licensed film from Sony at 6.8 million hours watched. Then we have Family Switch at number 9 and Leo on Netflix at 5.6 million hours watched at number 10. Looking at the chart for December 18th through the 24th, Leave the World Behind stays at number 1 with 16.38 million hours watched, with Rebel Moon Part 1 close behind as it debuts with 16.1 million hours watched. Elf moves up to number 3 and Home Alone moves up to number 4. The Super Mario Brothers movie is number 5 with 12.16 million hours watched, followed by How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the Jim Carrey version on Peacock, and National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation on Hulu and Max. The Grinch on Peacock, the animated version, comes in at number 8. Candy Cane Lane on Amazon comes in at number 9, and Gran Turismo on Netflix comes in at number 10. And then the final streaming movie chart of the year from Christmas Day through New Year's Eve of 2023, Rebel Moon Part 1 takes over the top spot at 16.2 million views, followed by Leave the World Behind at 14.6 million. Meg 2 The Trench makes its debut streaming on Netflix. It had a brief stint in the top 10 streaming on Max, but it still is able to crack the top 5 when it emerges on Netflix at 12.28 million views. Then we have the Super Mario Brothers movie at number 4, Barbie returning to the chart on Max with 10 million hours watched at number 5, Home Alone at number 6, Gran Turismo at number 7, Elf at number 8, and then a couple of sniper films, Sniper Ultimate Kill and Sniper Assassin's End on Netflix, both rounding out the chart around 6.5 million hours watched. A lot of dads home from work, I think, on the week of Christmas Day through New Year's Eve, and they had to watch something, right? Now that we have all the data, let's look at the most watched streaming movies for all of 2023. Elemental holds on to that number 1 spot with 125.3 million hours watched. Moana is in second place at 122.6 million hours watched. The Super Mario Brothers movie, though, also competitive at 119.5 million hours watched across both Peacock and largely Netflix. Leave the World Behind debuts on the chart at 95.5 million total hours watched in 2023. This does not count any hours after January 1st, largely because we don't know them yet. Avatar: The Way of Water drops down to number 5. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever drops down to number 6. The holiday season boosts Home Alone to become one of the 10 most watched streaming movies of the year in the US at 66.6 million hours watched, followed by You People, which drops down to number 8, Encanto, which drops down to number 9, and A Man Called Otto, which drops down to number 10. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and The Mother both drop out of the top 10. They almost made it onto that 2023 top 10, but drop out on the last chart of the year. Looking at the most watched streaming movies since Nielsen started to release data back in 2020, we have a couple of additions. Encanto stays at number 1 with 481.3 million hours watched, followed by Moana at 302.8 million hours. They both have a huge lead over the rest of the top 10. Luca is in third place. Home Alone moves up to fourth place at 148.6 million hours. Turning Red moves down 1 spot to number 5. Sing 2 moves down to number 6. Elemental moves down to number 7. Elf and the Super Mario Brothers movie had a great boost toward the end of the year, and they are now numbers 8 and 9 as far as the most watched streaming movies since 2020 domestically. Glass Onion moves down to number 10, and Raya and the Last Dragon and Red Notice both get bumped off of the chart. So let's look at the streaming movie world in the US. Let's look now at the streaming shows for the last 3 weeks of the year, and this is for December 11th through the 17th. Reacher on Amazon debuts at number 1 with 28.1 million hours, with Young Sheldon close behind at 23.8 million. The Crown returned with its last episodes at 20.35 million hours watched. Then we had My Life with the Walter Boys at 18.4 million hours, Grey's Anatomy at 16.1 million hours, Bluey at number 6, Obliterated at number 7, NCIS at number 8, Suits at number 9, and The Big Bang Theory at number 10. When we look at the top 20 shows as far as watch time per available episode, so when you take the total watch time and you divide it by the number of episodes available to stream, Reacher tops the charts here with 2.56 million hours watched per episode with 11 episodes. So that would be the entire first season and then the first episode of season 2. My Life with the Walter Boys is in second place at 1.84 million, with Obliterated at 1.52 million, Yu Yu Hakusho at 1.14 million, World War II from the front lines at 902,000, School Spirits at 885,000 hours watched per episode, then Squid Game The Challenge at 718,000 hours per episode, Coco Melon at 368,000, The Crown at 323,000, and Sweet Home at 261,000. Now, there's something I have to note about the streaming numbers for Reacher. There's apparently some sort of glitch with Amazon where they're only able to report the numbers for the first new episode of the season. So going forward, and even perhaps a little bit here with these numbers, we're not seeing the numbers for the new episodes that are coming out week by week. So we'll see Reacher near the top of these charts. It's very likely that Reacher has been at the top of these charts, but we're not getting that viewership data. And what a time for a reporting glitch to hit your streaming service when the second season of perhaps your most watched show of all time is hitting week by week, and you're not able to dominate that news cycle with how big that viewership is. I don't know if they're going to back report it. I don't know if these numbers have just been lost forever and Reacher will always have an asterisk next to it, but keep in mind that the series will be underreported, not just for these charts, but potentially for some charts in the future. Having noted that, let's look for the charts from December 18th through the 24th. Young Sheldon does take over that number 1 spot in the absence of some episodic numbers for Reacher, but Reacher is still good enough for second place at 19.66 million hours watched. The Crown is at number 3, Bluey's at number 4, Grey's Anatomy's at number 5, My Life with the Walter Boys is at number 6, NCIS is at number 7, Suits is at number 8, The Big Bang Theory is at number 9, and with just 2 episodes, I believe, streaming, Percy Jackson and the Olympians makes the overall top 10 with 9.53 million hours watched total. And when we look at the watch time per available episode, you can see just how popular those first 2 episodes of Percy Jackson were. 4.77 million hours watched per episode. That's 3 million hours ahead of its nearest competitor, which, to be fair, is Reacher, and we don't have some of those numbers, at 1.79 million hours per episode. Then we have My Life with the Walter Boys at 1.18 million hours watched per episode. Obliterated in 4th place, School Spirits in 5th place, Coco Melon in 6th place with 394,000 hours per episode. Then Dr. Death in 7th, The Crown with just over 300,000 hours per episode in 8th. Young Sheldon, with 131 episodes, still hits number 9 at 179,000 hours watched per episode. That's just how popular that show is right now. And then Car Masters, Rust to Riches, with its 40 episodes, rounds out the top 10. And then looking at the final top 10 streaming show list for the year, December 25th through the 31st, Young Sheldon is at number 1. Bluey is in 2nd place at 18.55 million hours watched. The Crown is in 3rd place. Grey's Anatomy is in 4th. Reacher slips to 5th. Again, though, keeping in mind we are missing a huge chunk of viewing data for that show. NCIS is in 6th place. Suits is in 7th. Percy Jackson and the Olympians, again, despite having a small number of episodes, moves up to number 8 at 11.66 million hours watched total. The Big Bang Theory is at number 9, and My Life with the Walter Boys is at number 10. And again, just to underscore just how popular the first few episodes of Percy Jackson have been, when you look at that chart, those 3 episodes had nearly an equivalent watch time than all of the episodes of The Big Bang Theory that are available on streaming. A lot of people tuning into those episodes. And when we look at the watch time per episode, 3.89 million hours watched per episode for Percy Jackson versus 1.43 million for what we know of Reacher, 1.01 million for My Life with the Walter Boys, 925,000 for The Manny, 587,500 for School Spirits, 570,000 for Money Heist Berlin. What If, which dropped their entire season basically consecutively over a week, hits number 7 with 475,000 hours watched per episode. Coco Melon's at number 8, Dr. Death is at 9, and The Crown rounds out the top 10 with 275,000 hours watched per episode. Getting a lay of the land at the end of the year, these were the most watched original streaming series of 2023. Ted Lasso's at number 1 with 181.3 million hours watched. Overall, the 10th most watched series of the year. Ginny and Georgia is in 2nd place, followed by The Night Agent and Love is Blind. Virgin River drops some new episodes right around the holidays. That moves it up to number 5 for 2023 at 157.2 million hours watched. You drops down to 6th place. The Lincoln Lawyer drops down to 7th. The Last of Us ends the year at 8th. Outer Banks is in 9th, and The Mandalorian ends the year at number 10. And when we look at the most watched library streaming series, so these are non-original programs, and you can see that these were 9 of the top 10 overall most watched shows on streaming in the US. So library programming, still a big viewership driver. Suits is at number 1 with 885.4 million hours watched, the most watched streaming series in the US this past year. Bluey is at number 2 at 714.6 million hours watched, followed by NCIS at 645 million hours watched, Grey's Anatomy at just over 600 million hours watched, Coco Melon coming in 5th place at 582.6 million hours watched, The Big Bang Theory in 6th place at 400 million hours watched, then Gilmore Girls, SWAT, Friends, and Heartland rounding out the top 10. There's also been a little bit of movement in the most watched original streaming series since Nielsen started reporting numbers back in 2020. Ozark remains number 1, followed by Stranger Things, but The Crown, by virtue of its final season, moves up to number 3 with 544.5 million hours watched. Virgin River moves down to number 4. Manifest moves down to number 5, and then the bottom 5 shows remain the same. Cobra Kai at number 6, the first season of Wednesday at number 7, The Great British Baking Show at number 8, Love is Blind at number 9, and Bridgerton at number 10. That will have a new season this upcoming year, so it should move up this chart quite a bit. And then looking at the most watched library streaming series since Nielsen began reporting numbers in 2020, NCIS is at number 1 with 1.9 billion hours watched, but Grey's Anatomy is making a play for that spot. It is close behind at 1.867 billion hours watched. CoComelon's at 1.784 billion hours watched, followed by Criminal Minds at 1.235 billion hours, and Bluey has now entered the billion hours club. It's at 1.020 billion hours watched overall. Suits is in 6th place, Supernatural is in 7th, Gilmore Girls is in 8th, The Big Bang Theory moves up 1 spot to number 9, and Heartland moves down 1 spot to number 10. And that wraps us up for Streaming Charts with Dan, sort of a hybrid charts and news show. Thank you to everybody that called in to the Mint Mobile hotline with your questions. And stay tuned right here on the channel. I will have my wrap up of the Sundance Film Festival. Of course, I'll have Charts with Dan. When movies start coming out again, I'll start doing reviews again. And of course, breaking news and all of the other stuff that you know I do here on the channel. Thank you for spending part of your day here with me. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.